Just watched Joseph Parker versus Yakup Saglam. I'm actually staying with the girlfriend, so watched it live from Mrs. Gossip's bedroom, which went down very well, as you can imagine. But it was an impressive performance by Joseph Parker, who won by second round knockout and really dominated the fight. He caught, well, I mean, to be honest, it was not an entirely dissimilar performance from Anthony Joshua's recent fight with Kevin Johnson, in the sense that the first minute or two of the fight was feeling out process, and then when Joseph Parker turned on the gas, it was over fairly quickly. There is a sort of live video of the fight which is on the Parker Box YouTube channel, so I recommend you checking that out. It only lasts sort of 2 rounds, so it's certainly worth watching. But essentially, Parker catches the opponent with a right hand in the second round. He does get to his feet, but it's all over, and I think the towel actually comes in from his corner. So a good performance, and Saglam, he's not an overly impressive name to have in his resume. I mean, Team Parker have been talking him up, saying he's the best opponent to date. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but regardless of his capability, I guess to get him out of there in 2 rounds is very impressive for a 23-year-old fighter, and he did a pretty good job on him. Now, in terms of areas for improvement, I think there were 3, and it was only a 4-minute fight, so I'm being overly critical here, but the reason for being critical is to kind of, consistently monitor the development of this fighter, which we've done on this YouTube channel for large parts of his career now. And I think there were 3 sort of notes I made while watching the fight, which I wanted to mention. So the first was the fact that Parker was hit on at least 2 occasions, possibly 3, by the overhand right of Yakup Saglam. Now, this overhand right is not dissimilar to a kind of MMA style punch that he throws. It comes from a long way off, it's fairly slow, and it's fairly predictable. Perhaps more worryingly, though, is if you've watched any previous fights, and I'm sure Team Parker must have watched the Solis fight, for example, or the Char fight, you can see that this is a favoured punch from Saglam. Now, it was kind of worrying for me that Parker didn't keep his hand high, that Parker was hittable by that punch, and I think the opponent catches him twice with it in only the first round. Now, essentially, against this level of opponent, Parker was fine to take the odd one, but you could hear his trainer in the corner sort of telling him, keep your hands up, don't let him hit you with those, and it was slightly concerning that he was hittable with that. Parker's a good mover, and I'd like to see him perhaps slightly more mobile with lateral movement, certainly mindful of his defences, keeping his hands high. Let's not forget, Parker's developed a lot, but we saw him, cut in earlier fights. We've seen him taking punches, and as he steps up the levels, it would be important for him to make sure his defences are rock solid. Because if you're getting hit by long overhand rights by, the top 10, top 15 in the division, it becomes more dangerous territory. So that's the first thing that I was mindful of for Parker. Related to that was head movement, and this was another thing you could hear his corner telling him to, consistently keep up. And it's clear that this is something that they've been working on, something that they've highlighted potentially as a weakness with Parker, and something that they're keen to bring into his game more and more. And likewise, it ties into the first point regarding defence. So I think that's another key area of development for him. Essentially, if he can invoke a bit more lateral movement, keep his hands high, get the head moving behind the guard, he's going to be a lot more elusive. He's going to take a lot more punishment throughout the course of a potentially very long career. I guess finally, Parker's got a very good jab when he uses it in the right way. He's got a snappy, fast, powerful jab at its best. Sometimes he gets slightly lazy with it. I don't think it's his natural inclination to throw the jab. He seems to be a guy who prefers throwing combinations of power punches, and he prefers to get inside. But his jab is a really effective weapon when used correctly. Now, what I notice is, whilst at times his jab is good, there's a tendency for it to be lazier. There's a tendency for it to sometimes lack the speed, lack the snap of the peak Parker jab. And I think it's something that he really needs to work behind more. I know he's always going to be a guy who likes throwing hooks, who likes getting inside, who likes having a bit of a scrap. But again, as you move up in levels, to create those openings, you're going to need to jab your way in a lot more, and it's going to need to be a consistently high quality jab. And I think that's something he needs to work on and to monitor. So all in all, a very, very good performance. I'd say an 8.5 out of 10 in terms of what I'd give it. He did possibly what we expected him to do in beating an opponent of this level, but he did it very well. He did it very quickly, and he did it in destructive fashion. As he steps up in grade, there are improvements to be made. The movement, the defence, the head movement, the jab needs to be more consistent. But Parker has come on such a long way in his last 4 or 5 fights, and age only 23. I'm confident that there's enough time to consistently improve. BoxRec have got him ranked 22 at heavyweight. I think that's about right. I think anywhere from sort of 18 through to 30 you could have him in the current heavyweight division, and I think the upside for him to move pretty quickly into the top 12, top 15 is certainly there. Perhaps 2 or 3 more opponents at a similar level are necessary. It'd be good for people to come in and give him rounds, perhaps. Perhaps a fighter like Alexander Ustinov, someone like that who's a bit, got a bit of world level experience, is known as being very durable. He's only 23. He doesn't need to start fighting the top 10 for another 18, 24 months. So I don't think there's any need to rush him. It's no bad thing if by the time he's looking to challenge for world titles, Vladimir Klitschko's gone and retired from the sport. That's no bad thing at all. So I'd keep him at this level for now. Maybe a bit higher than Saglam, so he's tested a bit more, but I'd keep him at a related level. Freza Quendo, Ustinov, those kind of guys. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. How did you rate the fight? Were you impressed by Parker? What does he need to work on? Thanks very much.